Here's the finished product of what we're going for. A nice clean looking doubled-in head unit install on a Generation 1 Miata. I'll zoom in so you get a better idea of what it looks like. There you go. Now to the tutorial. What you will need is the Mazda multi-kit, 1984 to 97. There's the part number, 99-7501. It all comes with an instruction booklet and all these plastic pieces. Now it's only meant to fit a single DIN system, but I'm going to show you how to modify it to fit a double DIN system. You will also want the Metra Harness Fits Mazda 1990 to 2001 kit. What it comes with is these two wiring harnesses that will plug directly into your OEM wiring. It'll make it so you don't have to hardwire in your head unit and wreck your OEM wiring. Here is a wiring diagram for the other side of this plug, your OEM one. So I'll just pause here for a second so you can look at it and get an idea where everything is. Alright, here is that wiring harness that I said you can find on Amazon, wired into the head unit. Just a hint to help you with your wiring. Bundle like things together just makes everything easy to work with. So, for instance, I got my power wires, left speaker wiring, and right speaker wiring. One thing I do, I'm sure if you're an audiophile or something, it's a rule to never do this, is I use spade connectors to connect all these wires rather than permanently connecting them. I just like the idea of being able to disconnect them easily and quickly. A lot of head units come with a park switch. It's supposed to be wired in with your park brake so that certain features on your head unit can only be used with your park brake applied, which is a good safety feature. But sometimes I have my wife or a passenger driving with me that wants to use those features, and it doesn't matter because I'm driving, so they can use them. So all you have to do, look up for your head unit, but this is for most, is wired into your ground wire. Sometimes you can just find a screw, unscrew that, and put the wire with a little eyelet to there. But I just do it straight to my ground wire. This goes into my chassis side ground, and that'll bypass that. I showed you how to bypass the park brake switch on the head unit. If you want to keep that safety feature, it's this blue and kind of a yellow striped wire, and that runs down to your, can you see it in here? Right there, that's hard to see. It runs down there to, it's just a single pin plug. Oh, get some light in there. There you go. It runs right down there to a single pin plug to your park brake switch. So that would be the wire you have to splice into. Okay, so step one for getting your mounts set up for a Mazda Miata is you got to find your two pieces that are marked number 1, and you have to cut every one of these tabs off except for the ones marked with B. It has a bunch of random ones for different vehicles. Once you have everything but the B's cut off, it's kind of awkward, sorry. Once you have cut every tab off except for the B tabs, you are left with two little notches. Let's see if I can move my light over here, sorry. Tight awkward space. You're left with two notches that will line up perfectly with the original mounting holes for the metal brackets. But the problem is, for a double DIN, you got to get rid of this tab right here because it's obviously just going to be in the way. This is for a single DIN. So let's get rid of that. That slit is pretty flat. There's these ribs here that you also have to cut off, these 4 ribs. You're gonna have to cut those off so it'll sit flat against your the bottom of your double DIN. you get the idea. So I'm going to cut the rest off. I also have to still cut all of this one off camera, and once that's off, I will show you the next step. I also noticed these two little bumps right here, I guess one on each mount. Those got to be cut off too. Well, for my head unit they do. You'll have to check with your head unit because it doesn't allow it to sit flat for me. Something to note before mounting your plastic pieces is usually head units will have a max, let's see if you can see it, there you go, a max length for the bolts you can put in there. The reason for that is behind these bolt holes is usually circuit boards lined up. You can't really see it here. If you shine a flashlight inside, you might be able to see it. So if your bolt is too long, it'll hit the circuit board and can damage it. So what I've had to do, you may be able to just find the right hardware, is I'm using my Dremel and cutting all these bolts down to my recommended size, which is 6mm. I have a 6mm Allen key here, and you can see somewhat. You can see it's the right size. Here's one that's not been cut down yet, and you actually do need to use these tapered bolts that go into these tapered holes right here, and allow it to sit completely flat like that. Because I'll show you later, the side walls on this have a very tight clearance to where it mounts inside the Miata. So unless you can find the right length bolts for your head unit, you'll have to cut these down like I am, which is quite a bit of work, but if you're a patient man, you can do it. So that's all I've been doing with my Dremel. I got just a rockstone style bit in there, and I hold the bolt with pliers because it gets pretty hot, and I just keep slowly going around and around until I get it to the right length. Alright, now that you have been cutting and grinding for what seems like 30 years, you have to find the holes that match up with your head unit. There we go, I got, let's see here, right there. So I'm going to use that one and that one. There is a third one hidden under here that I could try to line up. I would just have to drill a little hole in here, but I have already mock mounted it, and just 2 actually feels pretty sturdy. So I'm going to get this all bolted up and show you putting it into the dash of the car. This will be showing you how to put it in and what it looks like with the stock bezeling, and the problems that we have with the stock bezel. So once you have it in there, you'll notice you have quite the large gap down here and a smaller gap down here. Alright, once you got your head unit in there and you put the bezel on, you'll notice it has that gap on the bottom and a very small gap on the top. First I'll show you how to get rid of the gap on the bottom. So it comes with this small piece of plastic. There's 2 of them. There's a bigger one and a smaller one. What you want is the smaller one. All you gotta do is put it in one side and the other side a little higher, and it fits actually perfectly in there and will hold itself in place. Now you could stop there and that will be enough to fill that gap, but what I'm gonna do is drill 2 holes and use these mounting screws, which also come in your install kit, and screw it through the stock bezel into this aftermarket piece. Alright, so my final drill size for the hole in the bezel, not in this piece will be slightly smaller because you need the screws to thread in, but the bezel you just need them to go through. So my final size for the bezel was 9/64 drill bit. I'm sure you can get away with, if you don't have that, just something a slight bit bigger, but that's what I used. Now I'm going to line up my holes, make sure this all looks good. Get it lined up exactly how I want it. Right about there. I'm going to try to line it up with the front so the front looks nice and flush. So once you have that, you're going to drill your slightly smaller holes. This is 1/8 of an inch. There we go. So that's nice and secure on there. All right, to cover that top gap, we're going to be using this, I don't know, a little storage thing that comes with the kit. I don't really like to wreck it because if you had a single din in there, this would be a great thing to put underneath it. But I have a double din and I'm not going to use this. Plus the kit's not that expensive. I drew some lines to show you where we're going to cut. So what we're trying to basically get is this top piece and a little bit of the plastic on the back as a place to mount it. So I'll cut this off and show you how that's going to work. All right, once you're done all your cutting and sanding, you're gonna be left with something that looks like this. So that is pretty much the perfect size if you follow just one width of the container. This is gonna be the perfect size to fill that gap. You wanna sand it nice and flat. I only cut close to it and then sanded it down so it'd be nice and even. There's the back side for you. This doesn't really matter, it was just easier to cut it that way. So that's how you want that to look. So for this top piece, you see these two little plastic, just a part of the mounts, I guess. You want this to rest against those. The only problem with that is the piece we made is almost the same length as the inside diameter of, the inside measurement of those plastic pieces. So if you don't put something behind it, what might happen is someone might push it and suddenly it'll sink inside like that. And then it'll be uneven mounted and you'll have to take your whole bezel off to get it out, which nobody wants to be doing that. So what we're gonna do, what I'm gonna do, I don't particularly like using double-sided tape and stuff, but I'm just going to put double-sided tape in behind here so that it can't actually fall back there. If you don't like using double-sided tape, since it's kind of a lazy man's repair, is you could drill holes in the side of these and put more of those tapered screws that come in the kit, those really small ones. The same ones we used for mounting the bottom piece to the bezel. But I'm going to use double-sided tape because you won't see it and only I will know. And all of you. Got my head unit mounted back up. You can see the double-sided tape I put in here. It's actually, this stuff is double-sided Velcro. I use that. It's 3M double-sided Velcro because it's kind of a hard plastic bottom, so it doesn't flex at all. And I've cut these to fit on there. There you go. So now it can't go in. So let's put this together and take a look at what these spacers look like. And take our top one here. Fits snugly, which is what we were going for. There you go. And now that top gap is filled. And that lighting's not very good in here. There we go, and that looks like it fits pretty good now. It almost looks like it's a proper double din. There is some very slight gaps on the side, but they're no big deal. If you don't want to go through all this work, JDM sells a proper double din bezel. So you basically just remove this bezel and put theirs on. It all looks the same, except for the hole is the right size for double din head units. I'll put a link in the description for that. Once you have your head unit installed, all that's holding it up is these 4 little plastic clips. And if you look underneath it, there's quite a bit of gap. I'm kind of worried that going down the road, because it's because it's a double din and a lot heavier, it could break those plastic clips just through bumps and stuff. Because the single din originally had those plates that we cut off that kind of added to support it. So I cut some foam chunks. I'm going to jam some foam chunks under there, and I'm hoping that will just absorb any shock loads from going down the roads and hitting bumps. Here's what those foam pieces look like underneath. Fills that gap nicely, and now the head unit is sitting on some compressed foam, so it should work kind of like a shock.